Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a pretty interesting show. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, this is a show here that we're going to have a lot of fun producing. A lot of fun. Why? Because it's something that I used to talk about a number of years ago. If you guys remember a few years back, when Skip Bayless was replaced at ESPN First Take, they replaced him with Max Kellerman. When Max Kellerman was there, I think he was on this show for about 5 years or so. He was someone that was totally different from Skip. He had his own flavor, had his own style. What we knew about Max from watching him on television back then was, number one, he's very, very smart. He knows his stuff. He's a very logical guy, although from time to time, he would have some wacky takes, like saying he would rather have Kawhi Leonard than Kobe Bryant. Of course, he had his Tom Brady clip theory. But none of this was nothing crazy. Nothing to the point where he would have to come on television and apologize for some of the remarks that he made because they were controversial or something that the network wouldn't agree with, right? Nothing like that. Nothing like that. So at the time, when Max Kellerman was brought in on the show, Stephen A. Smith became the A side of that show. Because if you guys remember, Stephen A. Smith was brought in by Skip Bayless. He was brought in. At one point, Stephen A. Smith was playing the role of a Shannon Sharp. He would come a few times a week, and then he would leave. But then ultimately, when Skip left, the show then became his. And at the time that Skip left, it was already a #1 show. So at that point, all you needed to do was ensure that you got the right guy to fill Skip's shoes and maintained your level of success, right? It wasn't like as if they were #2 or #3 and they needed to find their way back to #1. No, they were always a #1 show. But as time went on, and I was looking at the relationship or the dichotomy that existed between Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman on television, I began to raise the alarms. And we're talking about years ago. If you go back through the library of our older shows, as a matter of fact, if you go to videos, if you go to our YouTube channel, hit the video section and you put popular instead of newest, you'll see some of those shows. And I want you guys to go watch some of them. Because in some of those shows, you would hear me talk about the awkwardness that existed between Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman on air. There were times when both of these guys would get into a heated debate, and I would notice that Stephen A. Smith would begin to cross the line. First, I started noticing the way he would shout at Max Kellerman. And I started saying to myself, I said, first of all, this is a bit overboard. Number one, Max Kellerman is a grown adult. Number two, he's a married man. Number three, he has kids. I said, there's no way you can have me on your show, even if you're the A side, and you're going to be talking to me like that on live television. It's just not going to happen. I don't care. You're not going to be talking to me like that and my wife is watching this or my kids are watching this. No way. You can get your point across, but you don't need to belittle me or talk to me like I'm some little kid. When we started talking about this awkwardness that existed, I can vividly remember people at the time telling me, oh, no, man, it ain't none. It's just TV. They just acting. They act. And I was like, yeah, no, they not. No, they not. And then what happened? Stephen A. Smith would go on television, treat Max like you know what. And I believe what he was doing was he was creating an environment in which other people would come on the show and disrespect Max Kellerman. One of his other guests that used to come on the show was Kendrick Perkins. Kendrick Perkins would also come on the show and talk to Max Kellerman in any kind of way. And I was saying to myself, I'm like, why is Stephen A. Smith doing this? Why is he disrespecting his co-host in this way? Well, it all became apparent shortly after when we found out that Max Kellerman was being fired from ESPN. Removed from ESPN First Take, and then he was going to get his own show. And then after that, we started hearing Stephen A. Smith essentially come out and say that, oh, as a matter of fact, I was the one that pushed for the firing, which stunned a lot of people, but also gave the words that I used to say back then, it gave them some credibility. So what happened? Recently, he goes on the Joe Budden podcast, and he goes there, and he starts dragging Max Kellerman for no apparent reason. All Joe Budden said was, what happened? Why didn't it work out? Then Stephen A. Smith went off and started saying some extra stuff. And at the time I said, this is one grimy dude. That is foul. You know good and well this guy doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a new gig. And you're out here talking about him like this. Why are you doing this? Who sent you to go this hard at Max Kellerman? Well, it turns out that I wasn't the only one that took that position, because Marcellus Wiley, who I watch, go check him out, I'm sure you guys know him, used to work at ESPN. There's that famous segment with Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith, when Skip Bayless said Tom Brady is a bigger draw than Kobe Bryant and then LeBron, and then Stephen A. Smith got fed up, walked off the set. He goes to the back. Who does he get? He gets Marcellus Wiley, right? So Marcellus Wiley used to have a morning radio show with Max Kellerman, and he knows both gentlemen. Well, it looks like even Marcellus Wiley has reached the point where he's like, forget about the fact that I know these people. Forget about the fact that I'm one of the people that comes from inside the system and I'm now doing it independently. I don't like the way my former co-host is being treated, was being spoken about, and I'm going to say something. So what we want to do is want to play exactly what he had to say. It's a pretty long show. He had like a 16-minute segment, but we're going to put together some of the parts that we thought were important, and then we're going to come back and give you guys our thoughts. Take a listen to what Marcellus Wiley had to say about how this relationship ultimately got fractured. Take a listen to that there.
And then I started to hear what was going on with my boy Max. So we went through the process. Obviously, he left, went back home, big homecoming, big show, making buku bread. I was like, dog, salute. And then I start watching, and then I start knowing what was really going on. Now, all of my intel doesn't come from Max. I'm just going to get that out the way. I'm going to preface it like that. Why? Because that ain't a good homie to put you always in a position where you got to talk about your situation. A good homie will also get it from everyone else in that situation. So I ain't got to put you in that bad place where you got to go to work every day and face your reality, which wasn't always a good reality. Let me take y'all behind the scenes, because I know the people who helped construct that show. I know Max. I know Stephen A. Stephen A. wanted Max for very specific reasons. Now, I'm going to say these reasons, and everybody's going to have a reaction. He wanted Max first because he was white. He wanted Max second because he was intelligent. He wanted Max third because Max can speak on all things, including some things that even Stephen A. can't speak on if you really want to go there. Max's hip-hop knowledge is killing 99% of the people in this world. His boxing knowledge, etc., right? So he fills in the gaps, and also he's Max Kellerman, a white, intelligent dude. All right. Now, Stephen A. used to come on our radio show all the time when we were in L.A., so I know he was familiar with who Max was, but I don't think he paid enough attention, because he got slapped in the face with who Max really is. And then y'all saw the awkwardness that ensued because Max all of a sudden couldn't be who Max really was. Let me take you through it. Stephen A.'s first take, the show wanted Max to speak for white America. That's that balancing act. You remember that model? It still exists, but it was really the model. Black, white, all right? We got, highbrow, lowbrow, right? Uptown, downtown, streets, boardroom, all those damn dynamics and contrasts that everybody was lazily just buying into. Especially when you lose Skip Bayless, you get Max. Now, it's not just Max speak for white America, but that would allow Stephen A., brother, get to speak for black America. Now we got it. And then Stephen A. felt like he was going to be the king, even though he was already on the best show, #1 rated show, I should say, because I'm speaking for my people. Oh, how empowering. Not only am I #1, but I'm speaking for my people. Okay, now here's the problem. Stephen A., the entertainer, had to meet Max Kellerman, the educator. And boy, that was a class that had a different lesson plan. And that's what happened. That's how this all started. This all started from a guy who was so intelligent, it brought back some of those insecurities from Stephen A. And a guy who would not back down on those issues and actually outshine Stephen A. in the same issues that he wanted to conquer so that he could not only be the king, but also the voice of the people. This ain't Skip Bayless sitting next to you now, a white guy who's like, head nodding on the black issues, head nodding on the societal issues, letting you just speak and just whatever you say, hey, it's the way it goes. Not Max. Max will break down some old ass history on you. He bring it back to the day where you're like, and then all of a sudden what you have to do now is two things. One, kick in overdrive and being the entertainer, because you can't out-educate them on this one. You're not going to out-articulate them on this. But two, you're going to all of a sudden start to suppress them. And I told Max this. I was like, dog, you ain't standing as tall as you used to. You ain't shining as bright as you used to. It's cracking, dog. They're not letting you do it. And he was like, dog, that's resistance up there. Okay. Now, what ended up happening is Max kept fighting the resistance, but that headwind was strong. What was worse is how he was starting to get treated on air, not off air. On air, we all saw it. Stephen A was starting to act out how he didn't like how Max was winning those conversations, how Max was not going with the flow. And then he makes comments like this. You need to do what you need to do or else I'm going to get someone else. You know what he needed Max Kellerman to do? Is to be a head-nodding white guy and let him be the brother who spoke for all the people. And Max didn't let it happen. Now, Max didn't want career suicide either, so he knew he couldn't fight Stephen A. So what did he do? Got his shots off and said, hey, I'm just doing my job. And it still gets to you because it got to you. It's hypocritical to be sensitive right now if you're Stephen A. to Shannon and Shannon getting pushed out of FS1 and all of that happened there. And not Max when you did the same thing to Max. Oh, please do not tell me it's different because Max is white. Please don't say that. I know you're not going to go there. So what's the difference? You pushed Max out, but then you're like, it's Shannon's story to tell. But let me just tell you, it's facts. He got pushed out. Okay, Max ain't a journalist. Max ain't an athlete. Well, why the hell was I ear hustling, hearing you and them on the phone trying to beg him to come to New York to do the show? Did Max all of a sudden stop playing football that day? Was his NBA Hall of Fame speech, what? Well, it was weak. When was Max ever an athlete? When was Max ever a traditional journalist? Even though he did his work, he put in work, dog. There was on New York Public Access and like black and white channel. Like, dog, Max used to put in work. Stephen A gets a salute from all, especially me, because I respect his work ethic. But right now, and a lot of people are seeing it right before our very eyes, no love and no respect for your ethics. Work ethic, ethics, because you are set tripping.
So you heard what he had to say there. Here are my thoughts. I am glad that Marcellus Wiley is the one saying this. I am very happy. The way Stephen A. Smith comes on, he makes it seem like as if he's, this guy, this man's man, he's never flustered by anything. I'm 100% confident 100% of the time, when in reality, he overcompensates. Anyone watching that show knew that whenever these two gentlemen were having an argument, most of the time, Max Kellerman was the more logical person. And you could see it begin to bother Stephen A. Smith, because I believe Stephen A. Smith is one of these people that believes that whenever he's talking, he should be the smartest person in the room. He should be. That's number one. Number two, what else I noticed was this. Stephen A. Smith right now is showing you who he really is. What do I mean by this? When Stephen A. Smith was coming on ESPN First Take, as a guest, back in Cold Pizza days, he was never talking like this. He never had this arrogance, this attitude, this thing of, and it is what it is, and it is what it is. He was never like that. He would come out there, say his point, but he knew his place. Even when the show decided to rebrand and go from Cold Pizza to First Take, and it was him and Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith never stepped out of bounds and tried to disrespect Skip and talk any kind of, he never did it. But the moment he got some power and he became the big dog on that show, you started to see him behave the way you started to see this behavior in him. And to me, what I think happened was the money, the fame, the exposure allowed him to magnify who he already was. The Stephen A. Smith you see now is who this dude is. He's one grimy, disrespectful dude. As I said in the other show, I'm going to say it again. Stephen A. Smith only respects money and power. And if he doesn't believe you have those two things, he going to talk crazy about you. I've seen him talk crazy about Dwight Howard. Why? Because Dwight Howard wasn't in a position of power. I saw him talk crazy about Lamar Odom on television because he believes he wasn't in a position of power. I saw him talk crazy to Max Kellerman on television because he was the one that was in a position of power. In this case, we're talking about Stephen A. Smith. I saw him make fun of those Nigerian players' names because he thought they were of no real threat to him. No real threat. What he's doing, or what he did with Max Kellerman, is a bozo move. That's number one. And then he did it again with the Terrell Owens thing. After just trying to pull the same thing before. Let me tell you what this guy does and why it annoys some people. Stephen A. Smith will report a piece of news on you. In this case, we're talking about an athlete. The athlete will say, but that's not true. Like the Lonzo Ball story. He'll then say, he will go on TV, shut your damn mouth. That's him. That's y'all man. That's your man. Keep your mouth closed. Keep your mouth closed. Then goes on his podcast and then starts threatening to release information about who Lonzo Ball's doctor was, what day he did his surgery, what clinic he did his surgery in. I'm like, bro, why are you doing this? Then we have the T.O. thing. He gets into a public dispute with T.O. What does he do? He threatens to expose T.O. Terrell Owens. He comes on his show. Comes with a bunch of files. Only God knows where Stephen A. Smith got all these files from. I don't know. Maybe he works for the police. I don't know who he is. He gets all of these files. He threatens again to expose you. What's next? You going to try to expose Marcellus Wiley for keeping it 100? For Marcellus Wiley, let me tell you, I watch Marcellus Wiley. Marcellus Wiley will say it himself. And Marcellus, if you see this show, correct me if I'm wrong. He will say it himself. I'm not about the drama. I'm not up here trying to act tough with nobody. I'm not going to go at nobody's mouth because I'm not with the nonsense. I'm all about peace and positivity. But for Marcellus Wiley, someone in media, someone who's a household name, for him to be sitting back and seeing this thing and for him to step into the arena and name names. And at the very end, he said, I respect your work ethic, but not your ethics. For this person to say that, it should be damning. It is telling for him. You see, it's one thing if we say it, because, well, you never met Stephen A. Smith. But in this case, it's the people that met the guy. And even he's like, bro, why are you doing this to your former partner? What is the issue? What is the issue? And this goes to show you, this has just always been my opinion. People that overcompensate are usually the most flawed people and always the ones that feel like they need to prove something. Let me repeat that. The people that overcompensate, they feel like they got to show you and prove to you, are usually the ones that are missing something within them. What am I talking about? Whenever you see, for example, a guy always bragging about his money and trying to show you got money, at one point this guy was very, very broke, and now he wants to prove to the world that he has money, or he knows that he ain't bleep without his money. So that's all he can offer, his money. That's all. That's it. That's it. Stephen A. Smith will be coming off, I'm confident in this and this and this and this and this. Well, if you're this confident, Cap, why are you going at Max Kellerman so hard? And for Marcellus Wiley to be like, you was intimidated by this dude's intelligence, and that's the real reason, because Son wasn't trying to play his role, the role you had out for him, and you got him up out of there. And he brought up a good point of, wait a minute, this guy was qualified enough to work on television with you for 5 years. You recruited him. You didn't know, you didn't do your due diligence to figure out whether or not this guy was a former athlete or he had a journalism background. And now all of a sudden you figured out that he didn't have a journalistic background and he wasn't a former athlete. What is going on here, buddy? Seems like you're making this up as you're going. Seems like you're making this up as you're going. That dude is not as confident as he makes it out to be. Confident people don't overcompensate. They just are confident. They don't need to prove nothing to you. They don't need to prove nothing to you at all. They don't. People that have money, they don't. Some people they don't need. I don't need to prove nothing to you because I know what I got. Like the late great Dick Gregory said. He said, and it's so true. He said a joke about people with money. He said, if somebody calls you broke and you start hollering and shouting about, oh my God, what are you calling broke? Who you calling broke? Who you calling broke? He said, we know you're broke. But he said, if you know you got 100 million sitting in the bank, you wouldn't even be moved by it because you're like, he ain't talking to me. He ain't talking to me. And in this case, for him to be going at Max Kellerman, who has not said anything about him, is a bozo, grimy, dirty move. But in his mind, he's like, I'm just doing my thing. If Stephen A. Smith keeps this up, if you continue down this road, bro, somebody gonna come for you and try to expose you too, bro. Be humble with your success, man. You're way too arrogant for no reason. You're going at people. Nobody's coming at, like, bro, stop. Stop. This dude acts like he's John Gotti and he's not. Like, he's not. You're not a mob boss, nothing like that. Cut it out, bro. You talk sports like the rest of us out here. Let's be for real. All that other stuff, like, cut it out. Like, somebody's with that. Like, so cut that out. But I'm glad that Marcellus Wiley called him on him. Called him on. Let me see. You gonna go at him too? You gonna go through your files, pull up your files, and go on him too? Go at him too. And finally, let me say this. Who knows? Maybe Stephen A. Smith one day will see this show and say, who is this arrogant MFer to sit down and feel like he can even dare to have an opinion about me? Who is he? What does he accomplish in this realm to make him feel like he needs to have an opinion about me? I'm one of the people that paved the way for him. Let me tell you guys something right now. You didn't pave a damn thing for me. You didn't pave a damn thing for me. We know the thousands of hours we put into creating this platform. The thousands. That's without being on television, without nobody knowing us. You didn't pave a damn thing. We worked our asses off. And if we got here, it's because of God's grace and our hard work, not because of you. Because even if you liked us, that doesn't mean we're going to be guaranteed success. Just wanted to put that out there for some people feeling like, who are you to? That's why. That's why. I just wanted to leave you guys with that point. These are my thoughts. Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comment section. Catch you guys on the next show. Peace.